When crafting a commander deck, I've seen countless players make this critical mistake that can significantly lessen the amount of fun that you have while playing. To understand this problem, let's go over the two scenarios you have while playing commander: playing with either a pod of friends or playing in a pod and an LGS. While on the surface this may seem like a minor difference, this is something I've seen lead to multiple mistakes when building decks. Let's take a home pod, a group of 4 players that are all friends and like to hang out on the weekends and play commander. Now let's say that Timmy is playing a Rakdos deck and puts Leyline of the Void into it just because he saw an outline that every deck needs graveyard hate. Now when he goes to play, he notices that none of his friends are ever interacting with their graveyards. The Leyline seems like a dead card most of the time just due to how little his friends and him play graveyard synergies. Now let's say that out of an Assassin's Creed pack he pulls a Alexios and wants to make a deck out of it. And this time whenever he plays it, it goes great. Alexios is going around the table, getting suited up with equipment, never really facing threats other than blockers due to Timmy and his friends not really running any removal. Now let's say that Timmy goes to his LGS and decides to play that Alexios deck. But this time things go much worse. Every time Timmy casts Alexios, he is swiftly hit with a removal spell, to the point where in the late game, the commander tax is so great that Timmy really can't even play anymore, and his game plan is just utterly destroyed. Timmy never added cards to help counteract removal for his game plan because he just never planned on removal coming at him this much. Now let's say that Timmy for the next game pulls out his Rakdos deck and gets to play Leyline. And this time it does fantastic. 1 or 2 of the other people playing are playing graveyard decks and it just kind of completely shuts down their whole game plan. Now Timmy's kind of confused. Why is the Leyline at his home pod such a useless card but an MVP here? And why does his Alexios work great at his home pod but can't do anything at his LGS? Now this is the key flaw I see whenever deck builders are making their decks. They don't understand the pod that they are playing at. Now there are many useful deck building guides and different templates to make sure that your deck functions, but sometimes it's not useful. This is because those templates are designed for LGSs, and LGSs and home pods are extremely different playing environments. Taking a group of friends that play Magic together where none of them ever really plan to play outside of that home pod, they should game plan completely differently than a person who is planning on taking their deck to a convention or an LGS with a large number of players. This is because players need to understand what meta they're going to be using their decks in. Now, most commander deck building guides will tell you to add a specific number of cards dedicated to niches such as removal and graveyard hate, but players should not always follow this. I mean, let's take the Leyline example from before. While the card is fantastic in a vacuum, at Timmy's home pod it's just a dead card. This is also the exact same reason that his Alexios deck was able to shine. Because of the lack of removal that his friends run, it led to a more niche strategy in Voltron being able to function effectively. So how should players deck build? Should they hyper-focus on an LGS meta or an at-home meta? Well, that's kind of where this gets complicated. If you're someone who can confidently say, I have no desire to play Magic outside of my friend group, then I would say that leaning into your home meta would be the best way to go to have more fun games. Now, if you're someone that usually plays at an LGS or conventions, then designing your deck to be able to handle more threats would probably be the way to go. Now let's go into a commander player that has a home pod but also regularly goes to an LGS or conventions. This is where the line kind of gets blurred on how well-rounded or hyper-focused on a specific meta you should be. I would tell you that the more people that you plan on playing with this deck, the more well-rounded it should be. Now, I already brought up this point in my MMO video, so I'll keep it brief here, but I had 2 characters made in Star Wars: The Old Republic. I had one character designed for PvP and one made specifically for raids. And so, with those characters, I joined different guilds that reflected that gameplay that I wanted out of each character. But now let's say that I wanted to join a guild that did half PvP and half raids. That would mean for my character that I wanted to join, I would probably have to split the progression to fit both PvP and raids at the same time, just so I could enjoy everything that the guild wanted to do. Now, if you made it this far, I would recommend that whenever you make your decks, to take a second to analyze the cards and not just follow a template. Now, before you add a graveyard hate piece, think to yourself, which deck that my friends play would this help counter? Is it useful against any of them? Just one? Multiple? All? And this is the same for if you're mostly an LGS player. When adding cards, try to think, is this card too niche? Is it only going to work against one strategy I might see once every 2 to 3 months? Or is this a card that'll help cover my bases against lots of different strategies? The key to not making this mistake is to understanding the various scenarios you might encounter while playing your deck. That is what enhances your enjoyment. I mean, take that at-home Timmy player. He should only be concerned with the decks that his friends are playing, not all the possibilities. So whenever he's picking out niche cards like Graveyard Hate or how much removal, he knows his own meta enough to know if they're useful or not. We only have a limited amount of time to actually play the game of Magic, so understanding what cards are just overall good value that are just going to be duds most of the time if you only play with friends is a real key to having the most fun while playing. Now, I really hope that this video was helpful if you made it this far. If you have any points that you'd like to add, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I would also appreciate it that if you enjoyed the content that you would subscribe, but until next time, see ya.